Do you like to just book directly with a hotel or an airline, or do you like to use a third party, say like an Expedia type service or a booking.com?
I'm able to cross-reference when I'm booking for a flight. I'm able to cross-reference like Expedia and Booking to see like what airline is the cheapest, what fare type is the cheapest. So that way I cross-reference.
When you're booking a flight, do you routinely buy the more expensive ticket that's refundable, or do you just say, hey, I'm good, it's all good? Like, what do you do?
I don't think there's any secret science to it anymore. I think AI has taken over their algorithms and the way that they analyze our consumer behavior.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. And before we get started, if I can just ask you a favor, it would be awesome if you are on YouTube, if you would just hit that subscribe channel right now. It goes a long way in helping us out in the algorithm. I would really appreciate it. And it's free. It's totally free. So now let's get into our show topic. Today's show is about you and your summer, and hopefully you have some well-deserved time off that you have accumulated, and maybe you've saved a little money to take a trip with family or friends. So that's right. Today we have you covered about all things travel related in 2026 and beyond. We've got you covered everything from A to Z. Speaking of Z, I have a very important announcement for you today. First time ever on the podcast. We have Gen Z in the house with us. I'm so excited. My friend Eleanor, Eyre, she is going to give us her perspective on travel, some travel hacks, hidden gems, budget apps, and Instagram-worthy picture tips. We also have my friend Kim Dickey in the house representing Gen X, and she is going to give us some real-world insight into lessons learned from frequent trips around the globe for both business and fun. And when Kim's not hanging out with her husband and her two kids, she is working in human resources for a big corporation here in Louisville, Kentucky. And Miss Eleanor is about to start her first real job. She has had many other jobs, but this is a big one with PepsiCo in sales and marketing. However, right after graduation, luckily she squeezed in a trip to Italy with her mom. They just got back. They did all the things that people do when you're in Italy. They saw all of the major sites in the big cities, but they also did a deep dive into the real culture of Italy by going off the beaten path into some of the smaller towns. So whether this is your first trip or your 50th, you're going to want to stick around with us for the travel tips today. And towards the end, I do have some pretty big updates for you if you are thinking about traveling to Europe really now and or in the fall. And so let's get started. Please help me in welcoming my guests, Eleanor, Eyre, and Kim Dickey, to the show. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
All right. So I know all of us are pretty seasoned travelers, but just in case for the listener, if they're not and they're just starting on this adventure of traveling, let's go over how, in general, do you decide about going on a trip, and just things to get you thinking, like, are there things you do every year? Are there people you want to go with every year? Is it more related to, again, do you look 6 months out? Do you plan a year out? What about budget? And we're going to talk more about budget later, but we'll start with that. Just how do you go about just beginning?
I typically take trips for leisure, and I started taking trips with my mom. We started doing international trips together in 2019, and we sort of branched from there. We've done a few since then, and I also go with my boyfriend Aiden a lot too. We started taking trips together. We started dating in 2022, so we started taking trips together either later that year or the following year, and that's kind of how I think about doing trips. But in terms of, I have thought about studying abroad in the past, but I just wasn't able to make it work in my schedule. So leisure just ends up being the best option for me. And I've gone with my mom, I've gone with Aiden, and I've gone with my mom's friends, as well as my friends too. So it honestly just depends on who wants to go on a trip, who would be down to go on a trip, and who is up for something fun.
Right. So a lot of, for you, it depends on like the people that you're around.
Yes.
And what they want to do.
Definitely.
Very important for sure.
And probably at the time, who can afford to go, right?
Yes. Right. It takes a lot of saving, yes.
Who's got the money saved?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think very similar. Mine would probably be in three different buckets, Shelley, in that one, a lot of it was for work. So I did a lot of global travel,
Right.
but that would be with my coworkers. But usually annually, we do a family vacation and we like to travel somewhere, typically outside the US. So we definitely have that geared. We're choosing something, with the kids. And then I'd say the third one is if you can manage some trips with friends. That's always like a whole different experience when you're off with your girlfriends versus family versus work.
Right, definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
And I will say for me, I think just like you guys said, a lot of it is about who can travel with you. I personally love to do at least one trip with my kids. And I try to look out maybe 6 months to a year in advance and see where I might even have some extra money. Like if I'm going to get a tax return, I can sort of plan ahead of things. And another thing, I do some annual stuff. I think you know, Kim, I do like to go skiing annually. So that's something that,
Right. And you make sure you always fit that in.
Right.
Yeah.
And budget for that. All right. So speaking of, this is a little bit budget oriented, and we're going to get into more budget stuff in a minute with the apps, especially. But I have a few questions for you guys, just your general feelings on a couple of travel topics. So the first one is, do you like to just book directly with a hotel or an airline, or do you like to use a third party, say like an Expedia type service or a booking.com?
I personally like to avoid or book directly to avoid complications. I remember last year, my mom's trip, my mom and Jeff arranged the flights and we ended up having some issues with our bags and trying to make sure that we had the bags to check. And we had a lot of complications getting our bags to the airport. And we ended up having to pay a crazy price, I think, because the descriptions of what they were buying was kind of ambiguous online. So I typically prefer, just to avoid any complications, any issues, booking directly with the hotel or the airline. And I feel like that's the best option, just because like I said, we've had some issues with that in the past. And whenever I've used direct sites, it's ended up working in our favor.
Yeah. Kim?
Well, I use it for research. So I will definitely do like Expedia, Priceline, Kayak, you name them. I will go out there and I'll price things and figure out, where, particularly with the airline flights, and trying to figure out dates, times, and price. But when I go to actually purchase the flight ticket, I'll do it directly with the airline.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is I've had too many issues with flights getting canceled, delayed, whatever. And you have to work through a third party then to get rebooked or even your money back. Right. And the rebooking is really the biggest hassle if you're not direct with the airline.
Right.
And so for flights that way, I'd say for hotels, somewhat the same. But I think the last 5 to 10 years, the whole VRBO, Airbnb has taken off. And I think that adds to your whole travel experience. If you have the opportunity to stay like in a house or condo or apartment versus in a hotel. And we can get into that more later, like the pros and cons of the space and the amenities and the locations.
Yeah.
But that's where I will tend to go more like, off the hotel beaten path. Type thing.
Yes.
But again, then you're booking direct with like Airbnb or VRBO, and you can converse with the host or whoever is managing that property.
Right. And yes, I would agree with both of you guys. I do tend to use those a lot for research. And I do think that you can save some money if you book through them. But to your point, both of you, it can end up biting you a little bit because particularly during COVID, I had a lot of stuff through them, and like Expedia, and I actually did end up getting money back because it was an event that was unforeseen, but it's some trouble. And after that, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm gonna go that route. So
I will add, when it comes to rental cars, I do use Priceline often.
Okay.
Nice.
Because it's kind of like, when you do like a restaurant reservation through Open Table or Resi or whatever, and sometimes it says that there's no availability at that restaurant, but then if you call directly, they can fit you in. And it's almost like, I don't know how the algorithms work. Maybe they just allocate so many tables to Resi or Open Table. But I kind of feel like the same thing with Priceline. A lot of times if I go direct to like the actual brand of the rental car, I'm not getting the same price as I get a
Right.
discounted price off
Yes.
Priceline.
Yeah.
So it's the opposite of airlines in that I feel like I get a better price through a third party for rental cars,
Right.
but not so much for the flights.
Well, and it's interesting you said that because I've never used Priceline and I don't do a lot of rental cars, but I'm going to remember that. And I mean, I will say on some Expedia things where I do all of it together, the flights, again, there's 4 of us usually,
Yeah.
the flights and the hotels, it can save me quite a bit of money, but you've got that whole thing where what happens if there's an emergency or
Right.
whatever. Speaking of that, just this, how we feel about if we're going to save money trying to skirt around some things. Do you guys, when you're booking a flight, do you routinely like buy the more expensive ticket that's refundable, or do you just say, I'm good, it's all good? Like, what do you do?
I personally always buy the refundable ticket.
Okay.
I was supposed to go on a trip to South Korea, and there was an unforeseen circumstance, and I wasn't able to go on the trip. But because I bought a refundable ticket, I was able to get the money back for it, which was great.
Yeah.
And I also, like Kim was saying, like you were saying, I'm able to cross-reference when I'm booking for a flight. I'm able to cross-reference like Expedia and Booking to see like what airline is the cheapest, what fare type is the cheapest. So that way I cross-reference, then I go to the airline, and then I always choose the refundable just to ensure, just in case anything happens.
I tend to not do the refundable as much as just make sure that you can still get credit.
Yeah.
Because I kind of look at it as I kind of know at least once, maybe twice a year, I'm going to be traveling. And so I feel like I could use that travel credit. And so I don't want to pay that extra cost or fee to do the fully refundable. I just want to make sure that I can exchange it for a different flight or,
Right.
use that money towards a different, trip.
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing too, Eleanor, with just are you doing a fully refundable money back, or are you doing just a credit?
I've done fully refundable before. If that's an option and if it's not insanely expensive, I will opt for that. But if it's an insane price difference, I always want to make sure that I at least am getting credit back.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I feel like I definitely, again, just with
usually
4 of us traveling and I'm paying, like I always am looking for the cheapest option.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a lot of times if it's a ticket that's not too expensive, I may not even opt for the credit part because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
But
Right.
again, that's bitten me before. So I've started looking at that more as an option for, to your point, Kim, at least for the credit, because I know I'm going to use it. So let's talk about all the folklore and possible myth around cheaper flights. Do you guys have any recommendations for the listener as to when to book? Is there there's this myth out there like Bigfoot that there's a certain day of the week you should get up at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday and book your flight. What do you guys think?
I've seen that. Like, I think it's all AI and algorithms now. I
Yeah.
think there's so much sophistication in where they look at consumer behavior and how we buy, when we buy, that I don't think it's predictable
Right.
anymore. And that's where I think you have to do the research and use your different, apps or the internet or whatever to kind of figure out flight days, times, and cost. But I don't think there's any secret science to it anymore. I think AI has taken over their algorithms in the way that they analyze, our consumer behavior. Now, I will say one thing is what they call like the shoulder season, like to go when it's not peak travel.
Definitely.
So that is a big
Yes,
thing. Like, and
definitely.
Oh, yeah.
certain summer months in Europe are going to be, just not just high cost, but high population of tourists.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so if you don't want to be in a heavily populated area with a lot of people and you want to have more experience and enjoyment, then going a little bit off the peak season,
Yes.
even if it's just by 1 month,
Yes.
Yeah.
actually makes a big difference
Yes.
in the experience and the
yeah.
cost.
Generally, like September, October, because I have certain travel companies and they literally, you can see it right there. Like September, October are cheaper trips as well as say March, April, but that doesn't work for some of us, right? So
And
again,
climate.
if you have kids, yeah,
Depending
it
on where
may be
you're
a
going.
climate issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Are you going up to Canada and it's still got snow?
yeah, which I might like. But,
Yeah, if
but
you-
that's not for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, Eleanor, what were your thoughts?
Yes, I definitely agree with you when it comes to the shoulder season. I definitely try to travel on the off season if I can, definitely like March, like September, May. I try to avoid June, July, August if I
Yes.
can. Sometimes it doesn't work. But in terms of using, I know we'll probably circle back to this later, in terms of booking with like credit card points and things like that, I've signed up for this thing called Deal Drop. And it's
oh, yes,
by
I've
these
heard of
two
this.
travel YouTubers called Kara and Nate.
Okay.
And they will send you an email and it's like XYZ fare for X amount of price that's on sale. And it will give you an email every single day
Okay.
of like travel deals, travel tips, things that are going on in that realm. I also use Hopper.
Yes.
I use that in cross-reference sometimes with Expedia and TripAdvisor to find what's the cheapest flight. And it allows you to sort of select flex dates. Like it'll allow you to pull up, if say that your travel dates are flexible, you can pull up a Tuesday versus a Thursday or a certain month versus a certain day. And also I've booked, I have used, I know Delta has this, you can do like Delta flex dates.
Okay.
Like if you go on the airline website and you can choose like my dates are flexible,
Okay.
it'll show you like a pool of prices in terms of if you leave on this day and then come back this day, things like that. So I use that to see if there's anything cheaper, anything that I might be missing. But I just signed up for Deal Drop. I haven't used it personally yet,
Okay.
so I'm gonna see how that goes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's funny. That was one of the apps I had heard of. So,
Yeah.
yes. Okay. So for the listener, those are good ones. Dealer Drop, Hopper,
Yes.
and then say Delta. And we've got a few
Yes.
other budget-friendly apps to
Yeah.
talk about too. And I did want to say, generally, there are just some recommendations about booking out, like domestic. They say if you're booking out, and domestic would mean too, like Caribbean,
Yeah.
Mexico, 1 to 3 months, 45 days-ish is the sweet spot. For international, 3 to 5 months out. But to your point, Kim, I will say that sometimes I'm not really on the ball and I'll look at a price and I'll get sort of what I think is a baseline. And then sometimes what happens is I'll wait. I'll say, yeah, this might go down. And then it goes up. And then you're like panicked. And I'm like, okay, no, wait, just chill out. And then, but if you keep looking, a lot of times it'll go maybe back down to where it was the first time and you didn't even realize. But if you, to your point, Eleanor, if you have some flexibility
Yeah.
and you can wait for those updates that say, hey, here's a great time, then that's another.
Well, it's like the apps
wonderful option.
is doing the algorithms for you.
Yeah.
It's triangulating all those different resources and data fields out there and
Yeah.
and doing the analysis for you. I mean, that's the beauty of all these apps that are coming out nowadays. I mean, they're making
Yeah.
it so much easier. Whereas before you might have had spreadsheets or copy and paste and trying to like figure it all out, but it just spits it all out now.
Yeah.
But the key is the flexibility of the
Yeah.
dates, and that's
Right.
not always the case.
Right.
Like sometimes when, you and I both talked about that at least one of our vacations a year is geared on family.
Right.
And so it might be dependent on when your children are available to travel, and then therefore the dates aren't as flexible. So
Yes.
if you can be flexible, that's really the biggest opportunity for cost saving.
For sure. Yeah. Well, let's move on to just sort of, can you give the listener some general things about passports, like what people should know? Like how long do they last? What's the deal with kids?
I would say that today's passport lasts between 5 and 10 years. And there's a new passport. I think my boyfriend Aiden might have it, but there's a new style of passport where the page with all your information on it is hard. I have the old passport. And I know that when at a younger age, when you get a passport, they last for 5 years.
Right.
And then as you get older, they last for 10.
Yes.
And I know that for certain passports in certain areas, like when I was going through Europe, because our US passport has a biometric chip on it, we're able to use like an e-gate or like an automatic gate. So a lot of those bigger cities, bigger airports that we were connecting through, we didn't have to see a border agent at all because we had that biometric chip on our passport. We were able to scan it and then move forward that way.
Okay. I actually did not know that. So
Okay.
you're saying that U.S. passports already have that.
Yes.
So when you touched down in Europe this summer, you didn't have to go through that whole thing where they take a photograph and a fingerprint.
We did.
You did,
But when
okay.
it comes to connecting through other airports beyond like when we got there the first time, rather than speaking to an actual border control agent, we were
Okay.
able to scan our passport through an electronic gate and then
Okay.
go through that way.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I think, and that was something that we were going to talk about a little later, listener, but let's bring that up now.
Yeah.
Like if this is, if you are going to Europe, this is a new thing,
Yes.
first time. When you touch down, you are going to get this photograph and fingerprint, right?
Yes, I believe it's the entry exit system.
Yes,
but when
that's
you
right.
when you get there, they will scan all 4 of your fingerprints, or not your thumb, but they'll scan 4.
Okay.
And they'll take a picture of you. So before you even go through customs,
Okay.
you'll do that first.
Okay.
So you'll touch down, do that, they'll take a picture, scan your fingerprints, then you move on, and then you would, if you have a US passport, you would then, instead of speaking to an actual person, like an
Yeah.
actual border control person,
Yeah.
you would then be able to use your passport with the chip on it to go through an electronic gate and go through customs that way. But the combination of those things is, I think, what takes longer.
Right.
Because when I went to when I went to Rome in March with one of my friends, it did not take us very long at all. I think because it was off peak, maybe shoulder season. But May, when we got there, it took us about 2 hours to get through everything in Milan.
Okay. So, yes. So, listener, one important thing about that is that make sure you have time for your connection.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Kim, passports. I know we have dealt with things with our children.
Well, I'll also say, I'm going to age myself here, but you know, it used to be a thing when went through customs or border control, they'd stamp your passport.
Yes.
And that was kind of a cool thing
Oh,
to
I
see all
loved
your
it.
stamps.
Yeah.
I loved
Well,
it.
with technology, as
Yeah.
Eleanor just
Yeah.
said, like
Yeah.
that's not even a thing anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I will also say, I feel like Europe and many other countries are much more advanced with their airport technology than what we currently have in the U.S.
Right.
So if any of your listeners are going to be traveling outside the U.S., it's really, I think, a good investment of time to research how their security and customs, their
Yeah.
border control works in that particular country so that they're prepared.
Yeah.
Because then it gets into like what you said about it could take 1 hour, it could take 2 hours to get through, and you got to plan that with your connections and everything.
For sure.
And things are changing all the time.
Yes.
You know, technology is advancing. So make sure you know in advance
Right.
what that country has for their process and their technology.
Right.
That'd be my advice.
And generally, just things I want to tell people about passports that maybe they don't know. For adults, passports are good for 10 years. You can even renew it online. So pretty easy, but make sure you've got enough time. Also, there's this, I think, stinking stupid rule about that your passport has to be good for 6 months beyond the date of
Yes.
departure. And it's
Yes.
like, okay, if it's not good, then why did you put the date as this date of the expiration? But whatever. And then there's also, as Eleanor was talking about with kids, a kid is considered, do you guys know the age when you become in passport land, passport world? A kid is 15 and under.
Okay.
So at 16, they get to the point where the passport's good for 10 years. But below that age, it's only good for 5. And the other thing that you need to keep in mind if you're in a divorce situation, like I know some of us here have dealt with, is that if it is a child and you're getting a passport, you either have to have the other spouse go with you to get the passport. And again, kids cannot be renewed online. They have to be in person. But you either have to have the other parent go or you have to have notarized signature.
Oh, wow.
I forgot about that, Shelley. You're right.
And, you know, something that also came up for me, and this is, again, probably because I have different names, a different last name than my kids, but one of the travel companies travel tour groups that I went with said, get a notarized signature from their dad that it's okay for them to travel with you to certain countries, which, again, I think that's it's good, right? Because there's crazy things out there in the world where we want to make sure kids are safe. So,
Well, another comment on passports, and a lot of people will take a digital copy of it and keep it on their phone,
Yeah.
just in case they, you know, lose their passport or misplace it. Another idea is to also print out a copy of it, like on a piece of paper. And part of that is there's a lot of phone snatching that's going on now in Europe.
Yeah.
You know, particularly like in the U.S., we will put a phone on the cafe table or on the restaurant table, and there's a lot of outdoor dining in Europe. And so there's a lot of people that can pass by and grab your phone, and a lot of other ways for the phone to be stolen. But if that's your only record
Right.
is your digital, pictures on your phone, unless you can get it through the cloud or, get it accessed some other way,
Right.
a paper copy is also very helpful when it comes
Agreed.
to a passport.
And that was going to be one of my tips, just our general traveling tips is make copies, keep maybe your original in the safe and have a copy on you, and also leave copies at home with a trusted person, as well as your
Yes.
travel itinerary. All right, well, let's move on to travel apps. And for the listener, I'm going to give you guys just kind of some buckets that I would put these into. There are so many great travel apps out there. I'm going to let Eleanor and Kim tell you about some of their favorites, and I know we've already discussed a few. So generally, I would say some buckets are as follows. Like we were talking about with like an Expedia, which does everything, where you can book the flight, the hotel, the car rental. So I would say just all-purpose travel app. There's also some apps that are geared towards educating you about the area that you're in. There are some apps that are geared towards modes of transportation that are not cars. So think trains, buses. There are some that are geared towards budget. I think that's going to be a fun category. There are some that are geared towards camping in the outdoors. So that is a start. Girls, what kind of apps have you used that you love?
Well, my favorite travel app by far is Google Maps.
Okay, I love Google Maps too.
I used it for everything.
Okay.
For our Italy trip, for walking, for buses, for trains, for ferries. It will get you from point A to point B, and it also can list for you, are there taxis available in the area? Are there Ubers available?
Okay.
Things like that. So that's my number one. But Italy is a very train-dominant area. The train system is really, really strong. And I used an app called Trainline to book every single train.
Oh.
And it was able to cross-reference for me the different types of train companies in Italy. I know Italo is the high-speed train versus Trenitalia, which is a more regional train. That it'll cross-reference for you what's cheapest, what time is it leaving, and it lists out for you all your options.
Okay.
I use that a lot too. And then for tours, we've used both Viator and Get Your Guide before.
Okay.
We took a Viator tour to Matera in Italy and Arborella, which was a super cool tour. It was like a half day, and it was a semi-private tour. It was a small group tour. That was a great tour. And I use Get Your Guide for tours and also for attraction tickets. So if I'm not able to get a ticket on an official website for something for, say, St. Peter's Basilica, I was able to go on Get Your Guide, look up a ticket that way, and use that app to get a ticket to enter the Basilica.
Now, what was that last one you said?
Get Your Guide.
Get Your Guide.
Yes.
And so for some of the things that book out, like you were able to find a ticket?
Yes, because I remember in Rome, we had
Yeah.
some difficulty getting, because Rome is so popular and touristy,
Right.
we had some difficulty when we weren't booking super far out to get attraction tickets, and we knew we wanted to go to the St. Peter's Basilica. So I was able to look on Get Your Guide and say, like, entry ticket for St. Peter's Basilica. And it pulled up, I was able to get it, and it is a little bit more expensive, but we were willing to pay the difference. It wasn't a crazy amount more expensive, but to be able to go and get there and do it at all was what we wanted to do, because that was our only thing we were going to do in Vatican City.
Okay.
So I would say it was worth it to spend a little bit of extra money to have a ticket to enter, and we had no issues. And the guide or either the guide for the tour or a member from the tour company or whoever is in charge of organizing your ticket will reach out to you and give you instructions on how to pick it up, where to enter. They'll send you a picture of the tickets. If they're sending it to you, they'll let you know whether it's a guided tour or a self-guided. So they will help you through the process too if you have any questions.
And the one you mentioned about trains, was it called Trainline? Trainline. Okay.
Yes,
Now
Trainline.
on that, can you book directly with them?
Yes.
Okay. And then at Google Maps, I've used that a lot just for figuring out walking routes and like what's around you in terms of restaurants. Can you do anything directly through them, or is that more information?
It's more information, but I mainly use it to build itineraries.
To build an itinerary.
Yes.
Okay.
To build that walking itinerary. That's what I really use it for.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Kim, you got any favorite apps you want to talk about?
Very similar, kind of like the StubHub or Ticketmaster here in the U.S. is just like what she was saying, like over there, Get Your Guide. But I use Viator all the time in Europe. That's kind of like a bigger thing in Europe than maybe TripAdvisor is for us here in the States.
Yeah.
So great way to, and it'll prompt you too based on your interests and the things that you start looking at, just like any other app or website, it's going to start prompting you about like, well, here's some other similar situated activities or attractions or experiences that might be of your interest. So it also kind of leads you to the water for other ones. But a good app is Wanderlog. And
I've heard of
Yes,
that.
I've heard of this.
so it's great, particularly if you're going with multiple people, because it's a shared itinerary. Everybody can add to it. So let's say that you're going to different cities and you get to pick one experience and Eleanor gets to pick what she wants to do. She can do her own research and she can throw it into that. It's all digital, into that itinerary. You can arrange the trains, the Ubers. So you can add in restaurants, transportation, everything, but everyone, it's live. So everyone has immediate access to all that kind of information and itinerary at the same time. And it keeps it organized for you, right? Because it's kind of one-stop shop. But I like the fact it's very interactive too, is that everyone can like participate in adding information, or, you don't have to say like, hey, Shelley, what time does the train leave tomorrow that we're heading to Milan? It's in the app.
So do you have to invite people to be like in your group?
Yes, like,
Okay.
yeah. And there's a lot of those type of apps out there. Like,
Yeah.
there's one like Splitwise
Yes,
is a really good
I've
one.
used
Like
that before,
if you're trying to figure out like cost and cost share.
Yeah.
I mean, that's brilliant.
You
Whoever
have
like
a group of girlfriends
Yes.
and everybody's paid
came up with
for
that, like,
certain meals and who needs to pay you back. and-
yeah,
Yeah.
same concept.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just getting even more brilliant with apps and the interactiveness of it and
Right.
just the ease of use. It's incredible.
Have you guys any experience with education type apps?
Not really.
Yeah.
I have done one EF. When I think education, I think of EF tours.
Okay.
And I did go on one EF tour, but there wasn't really an app associated with that.
Okay. Gotcha.
Same. Were you gonna?
EF,
EF, education first.
education first.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Not so much. I would venture to say that maybe my two kids have, because one studied abroad for a semester in Rome and one studied abroad for a semester in Prague.
Yeah.
So they probably had a little bit more exposure to that.
Yeah. Yeah, a good friend I know who's done a lot of traveling in Europe likes to use Rick Steves audio, and I guess it's just you download it, and if you're in Rome and you don't have a tour and you want to hear some of the history of the Sistine Chapel or the Colosseum, that might be a good option. Let me go through some others that I wanted to talk about. You guys really dove into the budget stuff. Did want to ask a quick question about how you handle phone data. Like, does your phone already have a plan, or?
So I'm AT&T
Okay.
versus like Verizon.
Yeah.
And they have international coverage for $12 a day to a max of 10 days a month.
Yeah.
And so when you cost that out,
Right.
and it's automatic. So because I have it already turned on,
Yeah.
that as soon as I land in another country, I have that kind of Wi-Fi or internet access.
Yeah.
So they just make it so easy. And of course, if you've got family members that are on your same phone plan, they can have that same international coverage.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I deal with it.
Right. Me too.
Yeah, but one more plug on that is when we talked about downloading information, your passes for attractions, all that kind of stuff, I always download everything before I leave, because as you all know, in Europe particularly, there can be spotty Wi-Fi. So I just want to throw that out too when you talk about coverage on your phone. If you rely 100% to want to access everything through your phone over there, sometimes that's not always the case.
Yeah.
So download your tickets and your attractions in advance is what I'd advise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same. I have AT&T as well, and I think it's called the International Day Pass that kicks on.
Yep.
And overall, it is $12 a day, but I know that another option is getting a SIM card.
Yeah.
I think in the
That-
future,
yeah.
I think in the future, if I'm there for longer, I might do that because I mean, the cost is not terrible,
Right.
but for multiple people on the same phone plan, it does add up a little bit
It
over
does.
time.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I made the mistake in Florence of not downloading my ticket, and we were trying to get into the Uffizi Gallery, and I could not pull the tickets on my phone,
Right.
and then we were late for the entry. Like, oh my gosh, like it was crazy. But yes, like I know now not to fully rely on cell service in Europe.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Wi-Fi
Yeah.
can be spotty.
Very good point.
I learned I learned the hard way too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no.
yeah. It was one of those lessons learned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, and to your point, Eleanor, about the SIM cards, there is, I think, an app called Eyre offers eSIM data packages in over 200 countries.
Nice.
If that is something that interests you. And there were a few other things I wanted to talk about with apps. There are several surrounding, as I said, transportation that does not involve airlines. And you talked about one. Tell me again. Trainline. Yes. And there's a Wanderlog that specializes in trains and buses, BusBud, motor coaches and trains. You guys know what a motor coach is?
In Europe, yes.
It's a big bus.
Yeah.
A big, nice bus. And
Well, they were a Greyhound here in the U.S. at one point.
I also did want to talk a little bit about camping in the outdoors. Are either of you even interested in this? I feel like there are people that are, but do either of you guys do any of that?
My boyfriend loves to camp.
Oh, awesome. Aiden's actually here in the studio with us today, so yay.
Yes, he loves it. I'm a glamping person.
Yeah.
But he has gone on several backpacking and camping trips through River Gorge, and
Right.
he loves it.
Oh, awesome. Yes, and there's a lot of apps out there. I'll just generally say for the listener some of the names of them. There's one called Glamping Hub. I'm with you, Eleanor. I like to glamp a little more. I don't want to be totally rustic. And a lot of these are geared towards people like us. So finding a yurt, a cabin, a tent, and you don't have to have all the gear. They kind of set things up for you. So Glamping Hub, Hip Camp, Pitch Up. And what's interesting about a lot of these is that it tells you about things in different countries too, which I think is totally cool. US, Canada, Mexico, some of these even dive into North and South America, Africa, Australia, which to me, again, is so cool because there's a lot of people that maybe you cannot afford to go to a place otherwise, right? So this might be an option for you. We're about to be done with apps, but
Okay.
I did find a couple. It was one called Hotel Tonight, an app that offers same-day booking with steep discounts. Again, if you have some flexibility, that might not be like for me with all my children or you, Kim, but
Or your flight's canceled and you're stuck and you need a hotel.
right,
give me
yeah,
anxiety, I feel
okay,
like.
maybe that will work. Okay, and then there's another one that it's called Rumor Travel, can help you to recoup hotel costs if your trip gets canceled. And likewise, you can go on that app and find cheaper places when someone else had a bad day and their stuff got canceled. So, all right. And I wanted to mention one more thing about the great outdoors, because as I told you guys, I do like to ski. There is Epic, which is a big
Oh,
thing
the
in
big pass
ski
out west.
community.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a pass that gets you into different ski resorts all around the country, and a lot of people who are from places like Colorado get irritated because they feel like it's kind of a monopoly. But I will say this, that if you have an Epic Pass, then it allows you to get discounts on hotels, which is useful. And also, if you have the app, you can look at things that morning, like what lifts are open, what runs are open, what the snow report is, things like that. So,
You know, my introduction to the Epic Pass was at the time, a company I was working for, we acquired a company that was based in Colorado. And one of their employee perks was they bought the Epic Pass for each employee.
Oh, that's nice.
because, they're very outdoorsy and they were
Yeah.
using it all the time. And of course, we're looking at this from Louisville, Kentucky going, oh, what's the Epic Pass and why are we paying for this? But then when we learned about it and it was like, yeah, no, you're not going to take that away. Like, you need to do it. But it really is a great benefit.
Yeah.
Because it really does join all those parks, and it's a year-round pass.
Right. And you can buy it for, if you only know you're going to ski for 4 days out of a season, you can do something like that. Or obviously, if you're living out there, you're probably going to do like a season pass, but
Exactly.
it does help. And there was one other thing before we wrap up budgets and apps. There are, dear listener, a lot of apps if you are driving. I think there's, I can't remember if it's, I'm not going to say the name, I'll get it wrong. But it can tell you what's off certain exits. Is there a Chick-fil-A that your kids are screaming in the back for? Did you forget something that you need to get at Walmart? It's going to be super expensive if you get it elsewhere. There are apps also that will tell you just, again, if you're driving around the States or Canada and anywhere in the States, even in Hawaii and Alaska, like what are some things to do in the area on your driving trip. So let's move on to some travel trends. Have you guys heard of any trends? There's some interesting things out there, or do you think that maybe some of your friends are doing some of these things, or maybe you are? And Eleanor, I know you and I talked about at least a couple. So
I think for my generation in specific, TikTok is really big.
Okay.
Because people will post and say, like, I'm in this place, and then it'll gain traction. And then, and when you like something about a subject, like, say that I like a TikTok about Rome. Okay. Then I start getting TikToks in my feed about Rome. Okay. If I'm liking stuff about Italy, then I start getting TikToks in my feed about Italy. So it keeps coming up. But I think, like, a trend that's, I guess, growing now is to go to places off the beaten path. Mm-hmm. Like, one place that I went to on my recent trip was Puglia, which is in southeastern Italy. It was amazing. It was awesome. I had never heard of it, but my mom had heard of it, and she said, we should go here. And I was like, that's perfect. And we went, and we had a great experience. So I think the idea of going somewhere off the beaten path is growing. These social media and seeing things on there, and like people will base their trips around what they see on TikTok. Okay. Like, because TikTok is such a big platform, and there's so much content on there. And same with like social media as a whole. I feel like people see what people are doing and then say, oh, that looks interesting, and then end up doing something similar to that. So I think like social media, especially in my generation as well, and off the beaten path too, is big.
Yeah. And also I read about one that you did, I think, with trains.
Yes. In terms of, do you mean, what do you mean?
More people are traveling by train through countries.
Yes. I think like it's sort of a little bit hard to figure out exactly how to use it at first, or at least I thought it was. But once you get into the groove of figuring out, by the time my mom and I were done with 2 weeks, we were good. We were good. We had figured it out. We were good, and we didn't really have any problems. And one thing that we, I guess, used for the first time we were there is something called Flixbus. They have them here, but I mean, kind of similar to Greyhound, kind of not similar to Greyhound, but I know they have Flixbuses here. But that is another travel app, and I guess a trend that people are starting to use more is buses to get from point A to point B. Right. Like, we took a bus from Rome to Bari, and then Bari back to Naples, and I had no idea that there was a bus that went from Rome to Bari. And it was very, very cheap too. Yeah. Like, it was maybe $20 a person to get from Rome to Bari.
Cheap, and to me, I mean, of course. Well, first off, I'm terrified of flying, which is funny because I fly all the time. Aww. But I also like the price, but I also like just being able to sit and like watch the countryside go by. I think you get something out of that, and sometimes you can do something else while you're, I don't know.
Well, you don't have to worry about the directions, right? Like you can just sit there like someone else is in control, and to your point, you can just look out the window or play on your phone or whatnot. But I'll reinforce what Eleanor said. I think like the Instagram reels are really big too. Like it's about having an Instagram worthy picture. Yeah. And so that's really important to that generation about where to take the picture. And that's where I think getting off the beaten path is you're almost competing with who can have that next cool place or the next niche thing. Like, what can you discover that nobody else really knows about yet? So that you get the more likes, you get more attention on your reels and stuff like that. So that piece is a really important part of it. I would say where I look at is more going with experiences. You know, kind of done you still need to sprinkle in the main attractions. I mean, there's some incredible history, obviously.
Yes.
You know, whether it's Asia, Europe, everywhere. So there's definitely things that you want to check off your bucket list, go see in person, learn about the history, touch, see, feel. But I think also it's the experiences. And to me, that's making the memories. Like doing a cooking class, you know, with your kids, or renting bikes in Amsterdam, or I'm trying to think of some other ones, different excursions that we've done. But that to me has, like when we were in Monaco, like going in the casino and actually, you know, playing a little bit in the casino, like those type of things that it's not an attraction like a basilica or the Vatican or something like that you're like, I really want to go do that. But these are just like having fun with your friends and family,
Right.
and making memories, or that to me is an important piece too.
Yes.
In addition to those
yeah.
Instagram-worthy
Totally
pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then another note about off the beaten path is I had a lot of TikToks coming up in my feed when I was planning my trip to Rome. Like I said, I liked one TikTok about Italy, and then it came in my feed.
Right.
It sort of allowed me to save money because I was getting things in my feed that was like, here is this free thing that you can do instead of this big attraction. So then I was able to maximize and think, I'm going to spend my money on a couple big ticketed attractions, and then I can use what I've learned and go to things that are less touristy right now, or off the beaten path, or cheaper.
Right.
So it was cool because it allowed me to save some money too.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all about saving some money. And yes, to both your points, I think, yes, one travel trend is social media is definitely influencing us. And I have a few others that I discovered in some of my research. I'll just get you guys' opinion on some of these. I thought these are some really interesting concepts. One is called the Microcation, and this is sort of like a 3 or 4 day trip. This might be really useful for somebody who's going like as a single person, or maybe with your boyfriend, just a few people, but they'll do crazy things on these. Like they'll be like, oh, okay, I've got some time. I've got a little bit of money. And again, there's a lot of things where you can do things last minute for cheaper, but I'll go to Paris for the weekend and I've got 2 things on my list. I'm going to do Eiffel Tower and the Louvre, and you do it, you go back, you're done. So some other cool things I thought there's something called Astrotourism. And so you're combining celestial wonders with cultural discovery.
Oh, that's like the Northern Lights. That's such a thing.
Yes.
But they're like doing the polar plunge now too, and making it more than just seeing the, like, you know, plunging in the cold water. And they wear these wetsuits. And going back to your little micro vacations, did a lot of those during COVID.
Yeah.
Because everybody was homebound and you need to get out, but you could go get like a cabin in the woods for 3 days and it had a hot tub, or, you know, whatever. That was a big thing for us, like during COVID, to take those quick, like 3-4 day weekends.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And apparently that's the average trip for most U.S. citizens is only 3 days, which I thought was interesting. Again, so a lot of people are doing these shorter trips. And just when we were talking about astrotourism, I did want to tell you guys and the listener, there is a solar eclipse coming up in August of 2026. And some of the best places to see that are Iceland, Greenland, Spain, Portugal. What a great excuse to go to these places.
Well, to your point, I'm sure there will be people that will just book like a 3 day trip just to be able to go see the eclipse.
Because that happened
Because
during
they can.
the last eclipse. I had tons of friends who were like, well, we're going to go to so-and-so Alabama just with the kids, just so we can see this, you know. So I thought that was a really cool idea. Some other things that interested me were some trips trending towards your Ancestry, which again interested me. I just done Ancestry.com and I got my DNA back and I kind of know where I'm from, but Ancestry.com actually has an arm, a travel arm, where they will help you with that kind of thing. But there are companies that specialize in that as well. And yes.
Well, I was going to say my stepmom actually did that. So
really?
She traced her family back to Italy, and she spent a couple months there, like getting all the different court records and paperwork and documents and stuff, and put together like a book for herself of her ancestry. But she started off there. But she really did do that. Like,
That is so cool.
Yeah.
She did that back in the day. I'm sure it wasn't as easy either, like she probably had to do, I mean, now there might be a little easier to do the research.
With the technology and access to info online.
And a few other things, as you guys were talking about, with things you see on like Instagram and just social media. Apparently there are a lot of trips just going on around events. Think things like Milan Fashion Show, like you plan a trip around that, or even popular books or movies like Wuthering Heights. Either you guys have a good English accent? Okay,
Wow.
well,
Yeah.
I was gonna try to do the dialect of this Wuthering Heights trip. Apparently is like surrounding going to Yorkshire, England, which I would love. I think that sounds super cool. Small town England. I love it. All right, so we have done some trends, talked about that. Let's do our round robin. I think this is going to be one of the funnest parts of the show today. We're each going to just say a few things, and we can just keep going around. Maybe a couple things at a time about some of your tried and true things you feel passionately about. You want the listener to know this is something that I've found really useful when I am traveling. All right, so who's up first?
I can go first.
Okay.
I'll go with 2.
Okay.
AirTags for everything.
AirTags.
Backpack, suitcase, like as many as you can get, like passport, wallet, like peace of mind, and also extra passport photo. Just in case, God forbid, something happens to your passport while you're there, having an extra copy of your photo with you can speed up the process of getting a new one. God forbid if that happens.
Absolutely.
When we talk about apps, and your typical go-to is you try to look up restaurants, right?
Yeah.
And you but you're looking at like Viator, TripAdvisor, or where the best ones ranked. But if you flip it and you say like, where do the locals eat or something like that, it's kind of what Eleanor was saying about off the beaten path. And to me, that's a better way to experience a city, is like not going to all the like Michelin rated ones, but like where the locals go if you really want to be part of that, city experience.
Yes.
So it's a different listing, different access.
Yeah.
And you're getting that access how?
With just the prompts that you feed into like AI or Chat GPT, whatever, instead of just saying, what's the best brunch place, or what's the best place to have dinner by the Seine or something like that. But if you just flip it and say, well, like, where the locals in Paris typically, what's their favorite cafe, or where do they eat? Okay. It's just, you flip the script about how you're doing your search for information.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. I'm going to just do a few, since we're kind of on international here. Tips I would say, get some cash before you go. Here in Louisville, Kentucky, that can be difficult sometimes. You have to do it ahead of time.
The third bank downtown.
Yeah, exactly. Eleanor knows. But it's nice to have some cash for tips. And also, that would apply to the States as well, right? Because a lot of times you end up having to have some tips. I would also say that Eleanor did tell us about an app where you can get some of the sites you want to see at the last minute. Sometimes that is an issue. Yeah. So if you do not have something that you want to see, you might want to look at it ahead of time. Example for me was like I was in Amsterdam with the kids, and I'm like, we'll just be able to go to Anne Frank House. No, it books out like a month in advance. Let me see if there is one more that I want to give you guys. We talked about copies of passports, and I will say, I don't know if you guys have ever done this. Well, I'll leave that one out. It's pretty niche. So, well, it was about, all right. Okay, Eleanor, I'll just say, I've only done this one time. I got a travel insurance plan because I was going to enter Costa Rica with kids. We were doing very adventurous things. And
makes sense.
It was like $100, but you can get like basically medevaced out of there if you have to. So anyway, it's something to think about. All right. You guys are up again. Any other travel tips?
Extra luggage tags.
Literally, like Eleanor's really on this.
No, like not AirTags, like luggage tags for the luggage, because my literally, like I picked up my suitcase from I don't even know what airport, and my luggage tag was gone.
Yeah, they get mangled because they're
Yes. I
just
didn't
throwing
know
the luggage in
that.
with,
Okay.
they get mangled or bent in half or the
Yes.
plastic comes
Okay.
off.
Yes. So
That's
extra luggage checks.
Okay,
Yes.
I didn't know what you were. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Now
Yeah.
you just gave me a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and with the AirTags too, there's a competitor coming out there. It looks like a credit card now. They're really slim and thin, and they too are Apple compatible. I don't know if you've seen them, but they're supposed to be a little bit more accurate than an AirTag as far as locating your luggage. But
Yeah.
totally agree. Like nowadays, you got to track your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Type thing. But when we talk about packing too,
Yes.
travel, packing cubes, or if you're going to do the vacuum seal things, it really does keep your stuff organized and you can pack more stuff in there. So packing cubes are a big thing. And then a foldable toothbrush. And I know that sounds silly.
Foldable.
Yeah, but like
Okay.
if you think about a toothbrush being this big,
Okay.
there's actually one that like folds in half, and you can. So if you're on an international flight and you want to brush your teeth on the flight or whatever, but they make these travel toothbrushes that like fold in half. So you unfold it, so you have the normal length.
Yeah.
Versus having a short little guy that you're trying to use.
Like you get in the
but
hospital.
but a foldable toothbrush is another like little travel hack.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Well,
take with you on the plane and use.
I was gonna say I love that for planes, like to have like a little freshen up kit. Sometimes I'll go in the the bathroom when you're like at your connection, brush my hair, maybe brush your teeth. Some other things that I think are important are this is something I've been doing for a long time. I really love taking a backpack on the plane with me, and usually I have in it things to read, and you might even have a change of clothes or again some toiletries, your computer. But also I've noticed when I go to a place, I'll use that backpack. I'll take everything out, and we might use it if we're going to go for a hike that day, and put our water in there, or maybe if my kids have some extra stuff that doesn't fit in their purses. And then for a purse, what I do is I use the backpack as kind of my purse when I'm traveling in the airport. But then when I get to a destination, I have a crossbody that I've packed. And so that way I can just, if I'm not going to take the backpack for the day, I have this light little crossbody that has everything I need, and I don't feel like bogged down with it. So, all right. Any other travel tips, girls?
I have one more.
All right.
My mom came up with this one.
Okay.
Credit to Debbie. Collapsible water bottle. Like a tiny water bottle that has
that's
like
a
a
good
strap, and you can
idea.
like put it in a tote bag, like connect it to like your crossbody bag, like whatever, like, and that
Right.
saved us. Because
Yeah.
I know in Italy they have a lot of free public water fountains that
Yeah.
you can just like unscrew the bottle, fill it up, and take it on your way. And it's collapsible, so it can like be stuck in your backpack, or you can fill it up, crunch it down, and it really saved us when it was super hot. And oh my gosh, a mini portable fan. Mini portable fan saved us in Italy. Oh my gosh. I had it with me the whole time, and it
Oh
was
my
perfect.
gosh.
The collapsible water bottle mini fan combination was perfect.
People love those fans. I've
Yes.
never done that, but every time I see one, I'm like, I'm envious.
Yes.
Brilliant. Yeah. I would also say portable charger.
Yes.
My kids never have their cell phones charged to the fullest.
It's always a problem.
It's always a thing.
Yes, it is.
And so a portable charger, not so much for me, but more for them because
Yeah.
they run out of battery. And whether they're on the plane
do
or
too.
out being tourists and, sightseeing, so a portable charger. And then, of course, you need the universal adapter.
Yes.
Right.
And they make great
Yes.
ones now that are just easy to travel with. Like it used to be where you had all the different attachments for the different country. Now it's one-stop shop. You got one thing that's universal, but you need your universal adapter.
I didn't realize there was one thing now. That's
Yeah.
good to know. Okay.
Well, there's one that it's all in one. I mean,
yeah.
there's not one plug that works everywhere.
Yeah.
But instead of having to keep switching off all the
You change them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on the country
Yeah,
that
so-
you're in. Yeah.
portable charger and universal adapter would be big ones.
All right, I've got a few to add to this. Kroger bags, Ziploc bags, in case you've got something wet or gross. Also, I would say Sleep, as Kim knows, I'm very big on sleep. So anything that you can that helps you sleep, because you're going to be in a different place, different time zone. But I love a good sleep mask. I love earplugs. I like the wax ones. They're much better than the foam ones. And I, of course, have a lot of medications I use to go to sleep. That's another thing. Meds. Don't forget your meds,
Yes.
people. And
Don't forget the
also,
meds.
don't
Melatonin.
forget maybe a little extra Tylenol, Motrin, Benadryl. If you've got a kid that's got allergies, an EpiPen, prednisone, make sure you've got all that stuff, because the last thing you want is, to be stuck someplace where you can't get the sort of the mini health care that you need.
And you know what I do with that, Shelley, is I take like a little pill bottle, like this skinny one, and I mix all the stuff together. So I just have one pill bottle
Yes.
with the Tylenol, the Advil, everything in it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we talk about mini stuff, also a mini umbrella.
Umbrella and raincoat,
Yes,
right?
mini, and then also a little laundry bag, because you don't want your dirty clothes,
Right.
particularly like, let's say you got socks from walking around all day or hiking or whatnot.
Right.
You don't want the smell and the dirty clothes. So like just a laundry bag. It doesn't weigh a lot, but it helps separate your dirty clothes from your clean clothes. And here's another tip I heard someone say recently. She was traveling with her husband, and for their suitcases, they divided it up, their clothes, so that 50% of clothes was in each other's suitcase. So the husband had 50% his clothes and half of hers, and then she had the same for hers. So that, because they were traveling together, that if for some reason, without AirTags or whatnot, they lost their luggage,
Yes.
they still had half and half.
That's a great idea.
So I haven't done it myself yet, but that was
haven't
a
either.
tip that someone recently shared with me.
I love
You can do it with your
that.
kids too.
Yeah,
But you mix and
absolutely.
match.
Right. Yeah, because there's nothing like lost luggage. I was on a group tour where a guy lost his luggage, and we followed up with people after the tour. We were all friends. This guy never got his luggage back. It's the only time I've ever heard of that happening, but it was crazy. So great tip there. I had two more I wanted to say. Ubers, if you find out you're going to get somewhere really late or arrive or have to leave super, super early, you might want to pre-book one, and always be safe with that. What's my name? Again, there's nothing like getting to a strange city, like in the middle of the night, and you're like, oh God, like I don't have transportation plan. Like, is there going to be a taxi or whatever? And the other thing about
Me think.
Yeah.
One, I guess, website/app that kind of goes off that is definitely a private transfer to either when you're getting somewhere at night, super early, or like a place that's difficult to get to.
Right.
Like we use the app/website called Transfero.
Transfero,
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a private transfer company, and it's really difficult to get from anywhere down to the Amalfi Coast.
Okay.
Because it's super rocky, it's super
Okay.
busy, and there's one coastal road
Okay.
that goes down there and back.
And it's very skinny and
Yes,
narrow.
very skinny,
Oh, that
very
sounds
narrow.
scary.
There's one train, and we took that train down there, but that never again. But that's besides the point. But the Transfero was great. And
How do you spell that?
It's TRANSFEE, so 2 E's, Transfero.
Okay.
And we use it to get from airports down to cities, mainly for airport transfers, just to make sure that we had somebody who could pick us up at a certain time and that we could get there at a certain time, especially going to the smaller cities where taxis may not be as available, because we did run into that issue.
Right. Cool. I know what I was going to say about Ubers. This probably happens to very few people, but just if you are ever having to travel with your pet, just make sure that you call the airline, you find out what the regs are. It's usually about $100. I don't know what all you can do with dogs. I had a cat that was able to fit under my seat, but also on an Uber, there is a thing about there's a pet thing. I had a tight thing where I needed to get to the airport, and I had this cat with me, and this guy drives up and he's like, "Cat, nope, no way." And I'm like, "Gosh," it's like this tiny little thing. And so anyway, all right. Any last minute thoughts on what we just talked about? We're good?
Happy traveling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of happy travels, We have a few updates regarding Europe. I think you talked about one, Eleanor, a little bit.
Yes,
You've got maybe two for us on updates in Europe this year
Yes.
specifically and in the fall.
Yes. So the EES, the entry exit system, you'll have to do it during your first port of entry into Europe. So whether it be into the Rome airport or whether it be on a boat, whether it be on a train, whatever your first point of entry is to the country, that's where you'll do it.
And is it a one-time thing?
It's a one-time thing, but you like register for it once. But then
Okay.
when you're leaving, like, it's entry and so when you're
Okay.
entering the country, and you're registering for the first time, fingerprint, photo.
Okay.
But when you're leaving the country, they'll fingerprint you again and photo you again.
Okay.
So like you register for it, then you do it again every time you enter and leave. Does that make sense?
So this is, I think I understood this incorrectly. So
Okay.
you're saying anytime that you're going to be entering or exiting Europe, it doesn't matter if you do this a year from now, you're still going to have to do that? Or they already have your data and you're not going to have to
It's
do it?
like a registration system, so it takes a little bit longer the first time
Okay.
you do it. But
Okay.
then you're still like getting your fingers printed and your
I
picture
see.
taken as the part of
Okay.
the exit. So it's entry and exit.
I see.
I think it's like just a better way to track who's
Yes.
going in and who's leaving the country.
Yes.
But I know that England has something called an ETA.
Yes.
It's like sort of like a visa,
Yes.
sort of, if that makes
Yes.
sense. And I know England has that, and then I know other countries, like a lot of different Asian countries, have ETIAS,
Okay.
which is a similar concept to what England has.
Right.
Same sort of idea, just a little bit different. So just making sure that you're doing that before you get there, because you can do it when you get there, I guess, technically, but it would probably take a lot longer to
Yeah.
get settled
Yeah.
and get situated. So I think Aiden and I did ours when we went to England about a week or two out.
Yeah.
And they got back to us within a couple days.
That was what I read recommendation wise on that ETAIS. It stands for European Travel and Information Authorization System.
Yeah.
Used to, we didn't have to do it as Americans. We were the visa exempt countries, UK, US, I think there was another one, Canada.
Yeah.
But now you can do it online. It's good for 3 years, good for 30 countries. It should come back within even a few days. They say 30,
Yeah.
think about 30 days out, but it
Yeah.
should come back within a few days. But this is going to start in the fall of this year, I think. So
Yeah.
make sure you do it.
Yeah.
And any other updates you can think of, Kim?
No, I know a lot of our travel conversation has been focused on Europe,
Yeah.
but I was also thinking, I was just recently down the Caribbean, and they didn't have Uber or Lyft.
Okay.
They had their own taxis,
Okay.
but it was also cash only. They didn't take credit cards.
Interesting.
And so
Did you know that?
I learned it like 2 days before we left. It
Oh,
wasn't
wow.
because you don't normally think of there not being an Uber option or whatever. So I'd also say, look at what your transportation, options are, and do they take cash or credit card?
Right.
Because that was different than
Yeah.
our focus on Europe, where you can
Right.
pretty much find Uber everywhere in Europe.
Yeah.
Yes, and we did talk a lot about Europe, I think, and but just generally, I want to encourage you, listener, just any trip you can take. Honestly, it's just really good for your mental health, and it's that good time with, again, family or friends where you may not be on your phone as much. You might be conversing. There's a lot of amazing things to do in the United States where you can drive or fly, what have you. And even, again, if you're on a super, super tight budget, and I know people who do this every year, they visit a state park. We have so many beautiful parks here in the United States of America. So I really want to encourage you, if you can, to take that trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we all three feel very passionately
yes, I
about
agree
this
with that.
subject.
Yes.
All right, girls. Thank you so much for being here with me today and taking the time. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate you, dear listener. You mean the world to us here. You are what makes the show. So again, if you can, I am on YouTube, Spotify, and TikTok. On YouTube, you know the drill. Please like and subscribe to the channel. And if you wish to email me about anything, my email is notyourparentsamerica03@gmail. Again, that's all one word, notyourparentsamerica03@gmail. So thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. We really appreciate you. Have a great week, and we will see you soon. Bye.